Hi guys, so this video is filmed on the same day as the last one, so you know, we're doubling up here. So today I want to talk about another experience that I did. I learned how to drive, so I want to give kind of tips, advice, talk about my experience learning to drive, because you know, we all learn how to drive in different ways, so let's get on with it. So I spent ages revising for my theory test. I started revising on the 6th of July for my theory test, and I was only getting around 72% right on theory tests that I did. I literally used my iPod, and I was like, when me and my dad went on holiday, and I was literally doing tests whilst I was out. Not that I wasn't listening to him, but I was doing tests whilst I was out because I was really wanting to get prepared for this. I really, at the age of 17, I wanted to drive. I wanted to be able to learn to drive so I could drive to college, because it would make it so much easier for me if I did. So by the 31st of July, I was getting 86% right. And then on the morning of the 1st of August, I got 88% right on this theory test that I did. Practice test that I did. You had the pass rate that I knew of was 86%, and you had to get 43 out of 50 right. The hazard perception was quite simple. I kind of just, if it was happening, I was clicking on it. So you know that I worked for it. I worked. So I started getting 36% on the hazard perception, which wasn't a lot, clearly, and then by the 31st of August, I was getting 69%. Same on the morning of my test, which was the 1st of August. From what I knew, it was a 59% pass rate with 40. You had to get 44 out of 75 right. So on the morning of the 31st, I went to take my theory test. I went, and you had to put your stuff in a locker, and you'd be taken into a room that had partitions. So obviously only you could see your test. You were monitored, and people from the outside were watching. It was like taking an exam in an exam hall. There'd be an invigilator walking around, so they could see what you were doing. You know, once you came out of the room, once you were done, I can't recall whether I got my bag and stuff out of the locker first, or I went and got my results first. I'm not too sure. I can't remember. I was given an envelope and a book, which was a first car book. Most people get one of these when they take the theory test. Mine's a bit battered and bruised, but I still got it because, you know, it's basically full of, like, it's a theory edition full of, like, stories, how to find the perfect instructor, stuff like that. You know, stuff that you might need if you pass. The guy behind the desk, they are not meant to say anything about your results to you. They are not meant to do that. But, you know, the guy turned around to me and went, "Oh, is this your first time doing the test?" I was like, "Yeah, you know, it's my first theory, I'd not done the theory before." And he was like, "Oh, well done." I was like, "What?" So I kind of took the envelope, and I didn't open it. I didn't open the envelope. Even though he said, "Well done," I kind of thought, well done, this is your first time, you failed, but you got close. You know, I didn't open it. Ended up ringing my dad, and I ended up opening it, and I'd passed first time on my theory, which I'd worked so hard for. Tip: you have to want it. You have to want it, and you have to be ready for it, and you have to prepare. I've known people who have gone and done the test, done the theory test 1-2 times and still failed, and people who are still preparing for it. I had an AA DVD which did the theory and the practical side of it, and that spoke about that, and I swear by it. It was so good, and I've given it out to all my friends that have needed it, who some of them actually haven't used it, and they've, you know, they're not being serious about it. You have to be serious about it and have to want it, because if you don't practice and don't prepare for it, you're not gonna pass. So, you know, have to want it. Get in the mindset of wanting it. So yes, I passed my theory, and I was really happy with it. That I'd passed a few days after my birthday. You know, I was well happy that happened to me. Moving on to the practical, I had lessons since that day, since the 1st of August, and I loved lessons. They were good. I liked my instructor. He was a friend of my dad's. And, you know, I was doing my lessons from like August to the February of 2018. And my instructor finally said to me, I think you're ready. I think you're ready to go and do your test. So I went and did my test. You get a choice whether you have your instructor in the back of the car or not. He can't talk to you, but you do have that choice. And I thought, because I'm awkward around new people and I didn't want to be on my own with this invigilator, I said, oh yeah, I'll have my instructor in the car with me. So he sat in the back and I had this really nice instructor. Tony was really nice. And, you know, they are allowed to speak to you, but not a lot, because people have complained that, oh, they're distracting me. But we spoke, it was nice, he was good. I was told a few days before the test, which I was kind of a bit like, why have you only told me now? That 1 in 7 tests do the emergency stop. The emergency stop was the thing I was most nervous about, because I didn't want to stall the car, I didn't want to get it wrong. And my first emergency stop that I did was pretty good. So yeah, and then on my test, I ended up getting the emergency stop. So he took me down the road, I went to 30, did the emergency stop, which was good, and it was alright, and that was the thing I was most nervous about. Also, the show me, tell me questions. They might ask you one whilst you're in the car, or they might ask you one whilst you're outside of the car, and they might be like, oh, tell me how you have the correct head position, and you say about the headrest. I revised the show me, tell me questions a lot, and there was one that I couldn't get my head around, which was the tyre. You needed the correct tyre pressure or whatever it was. I think it was tyre tread. And, you know, I could not get my head around how much this tyre tread would needed. And then I carried on revising it, and in my head I was like, oh, you need 3/4 tread depth off of the 1/3 or something. I can't remember it now. But I never got asked that. I never got asked. I was like, I've revised this so long and got this one in my head, and you didn't ask me. So the only time I've ever used that was with my uncle, when I proceeded to tell him it. You know, why not use it if you got it? So I actually ended up failing my first test. I'm not embarrassed to say it. I will openly admit I failed my first driving test. I was so confident that I'd passed. I got back to the test centre and I was like, yes, I've done so well. And I hadn't. I really hadn't. And there was mistakes that, in my mind, could have been rectified, but I was so nervous. And that's okay to let the nerves take over. I really, really was nervous. And now I look back at it, I was. So, you know, I was really upset about it, and it's okay. It was okay. Tip for if you fail, it's okay to be upset. There was a lot of tears, and I'd taken the day off college to go and do my test, and I felt embarrassed to go back the next day, because I was kind of like, oh, you know, do my driving test, yeah, but I hadn't passed. So I was quite embarrassed to go back and be like, I haven't passed my driving test. So there was a lot of tears, and I kind of had to accept it, that I'd failed my driving test and I needed to get back on the horse and I needed to go and do it again, because I was going to drive. There was no doubt about it. I was going to drive. So I worked at it again for ages. You get a form that basically says what you did wrong, what was good about it, and, you know, I kind of looked at it and was like, I don't want to look at it anymore. Like, please get it away from me. So I understood. So in June, I think it was in June, I went and sat my test again. I did it just after I'd left college. In my first year, I went and sat my test again, and I'd worked a lot with my instructor again. And another tip is, it's okay to get frustrated after you don't pass, because I got really frustrated with myself, with my instructor. It wasn't his fault, it was my fault, because I'd made the mistakes, but I was getting frustrated that I spent all that time doing it and that I'd not passed. So I got frustrated with him, and but he was really nice and we got on really well. So I went and did my test a second time, and I was told a few days before my first test that actually I can't remember how, I think it's 1 in 7, like the emergency stop. 1 in 7 tests will not use the sat-nav, and you will do it through, can you take me to somewhere through signs. I'm the worst at sign reading and stuff, and on my second test, I got it without the sat-nav. I thought, oh my gosh, if I get lost, they'll fail me. And I was told by my instructor that basically they won't fail you if you get lost. You know, signs and directions aren't that easy to follow. So I ended up not doing it with that sat nav, and I was kind of like, oh, you know, I don't really know. I did end up getting lost, but we ended up turning around, and the woman was really nice about it this time. Julia was really nice, and I was kind of like, you know, mate, it's fine. I kind of was like, if I fail this time, it's probably because of my awful sign reading. So, you know, I kind of accepted that. But I ended up passing. I ended up passing my second time, which I tried to come home and say to my dad, I failed. I couldn't though. I was bouncing up and down. I was so happy. You know, I'd got another one of these sheets that I really didn't like, but I liked it. So after that, you know, tips for that are kind of just revise and just kind of get in the mindset of, you know, if you revise the show me, tell me questions, that'll be okay. The manoeuvres, they're fine. I can't really parallel park to save my life now. Like, the 2 manoeuvres I got in my test was forward bay parking in my second test and reversing back 2 car lengths in my first. So I can't parallel park really to save my life now. Not that I parallel park much. I'm a forward bay parker because I practice that so much. I've never really reverse bay parked, I don't think. You know, some things that like, we didn't really learn a 3-point turn in my lessons, and I said to my instructor before my second test, I was like, can you teach me a 3-point turn, because I've heard you use these in your daily life. And he was like, yeah, of course. So he taught me that. You know, we worked hard, and I did a lot of night driving lessons. So, you know, I'd learnt to night drive at the same time. I basically live on a hill, so I could hill start practically straight away because I have to. So, you know, I worked hard for it. And another thing that I kind of did was I put my P plates on when I passed, and I didn't take them off for a while. And there was one moment where it was really bad weather coming home from college. You couldn't see. It was really foggy. It was raining, and I just couldn't see. And I was really panicking. And I had my P plates on at the time, and people were staying well back because they knew that I was nervous and stuff. So realistically, keep your P plates on as long as you want, as long as you're not causing a ruckus with your P plates, it's fine. And I support the decision in keeping my P plates on as long as I did. But after that, I went and did my Pass Plus because my instructor spoke to my dad about doing Pass Plus, and my instructor had said that it keeps people safer on the roads doing Pass Plus. So I spent 3 days doing Pass Plus, and ended up getting my Pass Plus certificate out of it. It really did help. I learnt to drive on the motorway. I learned different skills to my lessons. It was really good. And you had like a book, so it'd teach you all about sections and stuff. Like, it was really good, and I don't regret doing Pass Plus. I think it really helped. I'd recommend doing Pass Plus to anybody. Like, it was really good. The one thing that I was concerned about was my insurance. The sunlight is doing my head in. My insurance, because I'd looked for insurance for a while, and the only real pricing that I could get was with a black box. And I'd heard myths about black boxes, that you were curfewed, that you can't go out past a certain time. They'll ring you up if you go over a speed limit like once. And I found an insurance that I'm definitely sticking with, because they did black box me, but there was no curfew. There was no telling me off if I'd even go a mile an hour over 30 in a 30 zone. Like, there was no telling, and helped me bring my insurance down by around £300. If that, I think that's what they said, that the maximum they could bring it down was by £300 if I drove well, and I did. And this time I was driving a year in June, and my insurance was a year in July, I think. And it did bring my insurance down a lot. It helped me a lot being on Black Box. If you get the correct insurer, a good, reputable insurer that won't curfew you and do all this stuff, then Black Box is really good. I really liked driving on Black Box. You know, now that the year was over and they collected, because I drove around in the same space, and they collected the information they wanted from the Black Box, I now don't have one. They now trust me not to have one because, you know, I was a safe driver, and, you know, they've reduced my price a lot, and I really appreciate the Black Box now. So it's not all a bad thing, the Black Box. So I recommend getting a Black Box, definitely, because it will be worth it. So that's really all of my advice on driving. So yeah, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you soon. Bye.